Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining this first ANOVA webinar of 2023. I'm Bridget Perino, SVP of Customer Growth at ANOVA. Thank you so much for joining our event today. The fact that we have such a large number of folks registered tells us that driving profits in propane is still a central issue for many businesses. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be taking you on a short but hopefully incredible journey today. We'll have a few poll questions for you too, and an audience Q&A after the demo. So please stay on and participate using your Zoom webinar controls. Please use the question facility at the bottom of your Zoom controls there to post any questions that you have, and feel free to post them at any time during the session rather than using the chat box. That makes sure that we can get right back to you if we have a question from you that we don't have time for on air. We also have an all-important exit survey that will pop up when you leave the event. So please do take a moment at the end of the webinar when you leave to rate the event. It'll pop up automatically for you and tell us what you found most relevant today for our organization. So let's get right down to it. I'm here today and delighted to introduce my colleague, Daniel Librelato. Daniel is a product engagement manager at ANOVA. He works directly with customers to implement and maximize value from their investment in ANOVA's digitalization solutions. If we can move to the next slide, please. Daniel leverages a really rich background in data analytics and engineering, engaging with ANOVA customers across the product line, including ANOVA Unify and the ANOVA Transform capability. He helps drive and has helped driven operational efficiency improvements in value for many propane marketers and for our customers. He's a 9-year veteran with ANOVA and instrumental in establishing ANOVA's influential role in the propane industry, as well as being an innovator and a business transformer. So setting new standards of customer experience excellence and a pioneer in delivering ANOVA Transform analytics and services to customers. His deep analyses help identify areas for improving operational efficiency and also for ensuring the seamless transition and integration of tank monitor data. He's also an expert in industrial IoT. We like to call it IIoT. Daniel has not only assisted propane marketers digitalize their individual supply chains, but his work has also impacted the level of digitalization across the propane industry. And we have a slide that also talks about the benefits of that as well, that we have been able to identify from the data that we have access to aggregate the benefits of digitalization across our customer base. Daniel has also represented ANOVA in the World LPG Association's Global Technology Conference on multiple occasions, taking home 2 consecutive awards for innovation in business improvement and in distribution operations. Daniel has a bachelor's in management and a bachelor's in international business, applied economics and finance, both from the University of South Australia. So we're all down under today. Welcome, Daniel. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Bridget. Excited to be here.
Excellent. All right, so let's move to the next slide and just give you a quick background about ANOVA. We've been helping our industry advance the use of propane and LPG around the globe, and be that whether it's out on the farm, around the warehouse, or throughout the neighborhood. We know we're not the only tank monitor around, but here's what we provide. We are a global company with customers around the world, including many of you on the call today. We not only operate in propane, but also the fuels, lubricants, and chemical, plus industrial gases markets. In 2023, ANOVA holds relationships with over 2,000 customers across 70 countries and monitors over 1 million tank assets. Our team is our most important asset, and combined, we have over 120 years of industry experience. But despite our global footprint, we take great pride in our local focus and service. No matter where in the world you are, we have a team or a partner ready to assist. We even have a few of those partners on the line today. Welcome the folks from Bergquist. We were so excited to see you registered today in force. Now, before we get going, I'd like to ask a few poll questions of our audience. We've got 3 quick polls to run by. Let's bring up the first poll question, please. We're going to ask you about the number of tanks that you have in your organization, whether you're that you service. So if you could use your webinar controls and answer those questions, we'll just give it a few seconds, see if we can get to about 80% of you completed. So we're at 36. You can find them at the bottom. If you're abstaining or it's not relevant to you, just use the NA. That's fine too. Just give you a second on that. All right, we're at 76%. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay, let's end that poll and share those results. Interesting, we've got a large number of folks that are less than 15,000, which is great to see because ANOVA Advanced Analytics pretty much work for everybody. So that's good. Okay, and we have just a few here as well that are over 50,000 tank monitors served. So I'm glad to see you out there on the line. Thank you for joining us today as well. Okay, let's move to the second poll, please. Okay, so what percentage of the tanks that you what percentage of your tanks do you currently monitor? And sorry if we were a bit brief on sharing the results there. I wasn't giving good instruction there, but we had a good majority of folks under 15,000 tanks and about 2% at the 50,000 tank level, and in between about even split. All right, okay, so this is an interesting one as well to see how many are investing in tank monitoring and then at what level. You know, often it's a bit of a journey. With the first rollout of tank monitors, you start to see the benefit, and Daniel's certainly going to talk about this today, and then you add on. But we do have customers that have made that decision to put a tank monitor on every customer. It's just easier, it's part of their business. And they throw that charge down too in most cases. Okay, let's end the poll and share these results. It's interesting that we have over 20%, so we have 19% who are monitoring more than 20% or more. That's pretty significant as well. And just a small number that are not doing any tank monitoring. Well, you've come to the right webinar. Interesting spread. Okay, let's stop sharing those results and go to our final poll. Thank you. So what hinders you most in gaining ROI on your tank monitoring investment? Is it getting them out there takes too long, too much work? Your employees are not using the data that you're accumulating. Not sure where to put those monitors for the best bang for the buck, so to speak. Not all monitors necessarily need to have not all tanks need to have a monitor. Integration with back office systems, or just too much manual data entry across multiple systems, and other, or not applicable. Okay. Okay, we've got about 60%. We'll give it a few more seconds here to get up to speed here. 72%. Let's see if we can make the 80. All right, I'm going to call it at 75%. Thank you for participating. Let's share those results. All right. So out of the actual issues here, other than there are other issues. So if you want to write us a question and tell us what your other issues are, we would really appreciate knowing what those are. So feel free to drop us a question and just let us know. My other issue is this. But out of these, we have lack of integration with back office systems, and the deployment and the maintenance, too long, too much work, and so forth. So those are our slightly leading topics here. Certainly not too much data at this point, which is good to hear because it does proliferate very quickly. And then employees not utilizing the tank monitoring data and not sure where to best place the monitors. If you know, if you've got smaller tank populations, you probably know it intimately at this point. But as you get with those larger organizations, that can become a real issue as well. Anyway, thank you so much for participating in the poll today. We'll stop sharing those results. And I would like to now just pass over to my colleague, Daniel Librolato, who's going to take you through a little bit of setup here and put you into a demo and actually show you some of this stuff at work. Daniel, please take it away.
Thank you, Bridget. Next slide, please. Okay. Right, so to set the scene a little bit, I wanted to talk about some of the challenges facing the industry. From our global view, there exist two sets of broad challenges facing the industry today. The first come from changing industry dynamics and macro influences, from alternative fuels to political regulation and just general dynamics and change within the industry. And the second and perhaps newer set of challenges that we're going to focus on today come from managing the increasing amount of technology utilized by your business to make day-to-day decisions. Next slide, please. To start with the first set, I'm sure these challenges look familiar to everybody. The number of gallons supplied has been contracting each year. The cost of delivery has increased, labor costs are going up and in short supply. Demand and weather patterns have become less predictable, and the cost of propane has grown more volatile with changes in global demand. We believe that propane distributors are spending around 30% too much on direct distribution costs, and as such, reducing the cost of delivery and customer churn to increase profitability is critical to meeting these challenges. From our perspective, there's clearly an efficiency which cannot be resolved from the use of traditional processes and systems used to forecast and schedule deliveries. This creates an opportunity to invest in new intelligent applications, more automate logistics processes, and harness information to really drive efficiency in how you deliver propane and other products. So while technology has aided efficiency gains across the industry, it's also brought on new challenges. When I think about it, the three prominent challenges we see amongst our customer base when implementing new technology are: one, the increase in adoption of differing technological applications. So you have your tank monitoring, but you may also have in-truck computing, your back office and forecasting system, routing software. There's four right off the bat, and that contributes to a mass amount of potentially consumable data points, but still the same amount of people at the company trying to consume that and make decisions. Second is the disconnected nature of the solutions in general. Not all applications are integrated out of the box, which can result in expensive or time-consuming integration work. And lastly, and very importantly, it's no longer viable for humans to consume the sheer amount of data that's available to identify opportunities and drive effective decision-making. So we need technology to help us do the job for us and make life easier. Now we can demonstrate that on the next slide. If we take one of the customers we've worked with over the last 10 years, we can have a look at their journey, and it kind of frames how propane customers have used and implemented technology over time. So on the very left here, we have kind of the historic scenario where there may have been no use of telemetry at all, so no tank monitoring systems, perhaps an outdated or no ERP or forecasting system. And in this state, your decisions are really purely based on local knowledge. So you know you deliver to Mrs. Smith every second Wednesday, you're going to keep on doing that. But that knowledge isn't transferable easily when people retire. In the middle, we have the scenario, which is quite common now, where you have some data. And if we use an example from one of the companies we work with, they had around 55 tank monitors in 2013. They had a forecasting ERP system. And in a practical sense, we can imagine that the last reported level was the driver for decision-making. In this state, when we looked at the numbers between the tank monitoring, the ERP system and your forecasting, there's around 400,000 data points to consume among the various technological solutions. So here, decisions are driven by basic data insight, but importantly, still human interpretation. And now we bring ourselves to the present where we have excellent data, but limited insights without the right mix of technology. So we think this is the state that we're moving towards now. So here you may have a scaled telemetry deployment, let's say 16,000 monitors, for example. There's an integrated IT system, so levels being fed into the ERP system from the tank monitors. There's routing and onboard truck computing. And as a result, you have access to really rich data set. But there's around 195 million data points to consume. Averaged over the customer base here, it's about 2,200 data points per year per customer to make a decision on, do I deliver now or do I deliver later? And how does that work with every other customer and tank I have to service? So the focus here isn't the amount of data available in itself, but rather how do you generate insight from that data with the use of intelligent applications that can help pull it all together and provide the insight. So why intelligent applications? Importantly, being able to consume and analyze all relevant data to identify trends and inform your business and operational decisions allows for more effective decision making. Intelligent applications themselves are critical to propane distributors because they allow you to process vast amounts of data from differing sources and platforms, derive meaningful insights from the consumed and analyzed data set, and they're capable of doing this at a speed beyond that which we can do ourselves, whether you're using statistics programs or Excel or your own software. Algorithms are always going to be faster. So they allow us to do essentially more with less. And so how do we do that at ANOVA? We've spent the last 2 years developing a state-of-the-art platform which brings together information from multiple sources, be that the level and diagnostic data from the tank monitor, the delivery history, scheduled orders and customer profiles from your back office software, or consumer input and feedback from our digital engagement tools. We have a single platform that allows you not only to manage your devices, view your tank levels and engage with consumers digitally, which has been the standard, but we also can apply our advanced analytics logic and algorithms to further provide actionable insight through various intelligent applications. And today we're going to be showing you 3 of these. We have ANOVA Transform, we have our advanced forecasting algorithm, and then peak shaving, which is a practical example of how that can all come together. So starting off with Transform, ANOVA Transform is our business analytics application. The way it works is we consume delivery records, or historic delivery records provided by your back office software. So they're real deliveries. We're focusing on more than just the monitored data. We're looking at your unmonitored tanks as well. Currently, we have 70 distributors using this application, and we've got 12 to 13 million delivery records that we've collected and analyzed over time. Importantly, the 3 core functions Transform provides is it allows you to assess your historic performance. It measures your delivery efficiency over a range of industry-specific metrics, whether that be average fill, if we're looking at 0-gallon deliveries, runouts, or the timeliness of the delivery. And this can be done not only at the enterprise level, but importantly, we can drill down and focus on regional markets or even individual branch locations that make up those markets as well. So you can get quite granular with the view. It also allows for customized deployment plans. Perhaps you want to tailor a plan for one district to specifically identify, well, where can you use tank monitors that provide the best payback on the investment? And here we're going to be looking for, showing the demo later, essentially tanks that are over-serviced, and that's the best place to start. And you can further tailor that, focus on residential customers only, and apply a range of other filters that we'll have a look at later. And lastly, and importantly, it allows you to measure the specific impact the monitor program is having. So thinking back on those first historic metrics, the average fill, the run out events, the gallons per drop, we can compare that for the monitored deliveries and the unmonitored deliveries as well. And not only which tanks are monitored and unmonitored, but we can draw a line in the sand and say, we know Mrs. Smith had a tank monitor deployed on the 1st of January 2020. So we're going to assess every delivery after that as being a monitored fill, and we can individually look, has that monitor helped that one tank, and does it make a difference? And where it does, that's fantastic, means the program's working. But where it doesn't, we can drill down further and try and identify, well, what was the reason for that? And then we can go through the change management process of ensuring the monitor program is really helping you. So if we kind of wrap that all up in a graphic here, everything you see in the yellow box is part of Transform. And there are 5 assessments that run across the top that we'll have a look at individually as we go. They tend to group into the 3 areas we just covered. The first 2 to do with the historic assessment, the optimization strategy with your deployment planning, and then your aligning of operations and change management really is the constant feedback and adjustment of the monitor program to measure its impact. The outcomes we typically see from this, first of all, is better fuel efficiency. And that's what you're going to aim for in, I'd like to call phase 1. Itself drives fewer runouts, less customer churn, and better margins. And then once you've accomplished that, we can start looking at truck utilization, driver overtime, and then more delivered volume with less resources. So you can view this as a process that's iterative over time. And you'll notice that there's a bit of a feedback loop here. So what we're showing is the Transform assessment, the goals we want to obtain, and then your IT systems down the bottom, your back office, your routing and vehicle tracking, they're all providing data both back into Transform so we can reassess, but also to the monitor platform and the monitor platform back to them. So we're getting count and alarm settings, we're looking at scheduled deliveries, diagnostic and operational data between the monitor platform and your systems as well. So the picture we're trying to paint here is that it will all integrate together to provide a fairly robust e-logistics platform. And we have customers that use this Transform process to kind of accomplish those goals. And again, it's iterative cycle. So whether that be every 6 months or every year, we constantly reassess, provide deployment plans, deploy the monitors, assess the impact, and you kind of rinse and repeat and go through that over and over. So we'll briefly cover some of the core functions in Transform now. So the historic analysis of your delivery data involves assessing your per drop efficiency, providing insight into year-to-year or month-to-month performance, and highlighting areas where you can improve delivery efficiency. So here in this chart on the right-hand side, you notice that there's a lot of green tiles, and everything in the green tile is a collection of tanks or site locations that you have. And the green indicates the sites that could best use a monitor because they're being overserviced or there's too many deliveries occurring each year to that location. We can then drill down deeper and provide insight across your districts, trucks and customer locations. So we're comparing performance district to district. What this chart here is showing is the average fill and essentially the timeliness of the delivery. So green being a best case delivery between 50 and 70%, and the red being an inefficient fill somewhere between 10 and 25 perhaps. And we can look across a range of other metrics. We can look at forecast category and truck efficiency as well. Number of drops, number of gallons. So we can do district to district, and that'll show you the consistency in the monitor program across your various branch locations if you have them. The optimization strategy assessment allows you to create custom deployment plans based on multiple input criteria, whether that be customer or forecast category, an individual district location, or even tank size. So we can get quite tailored with the deployment plan to suit your monitor strategy as well. And that allows you to be very specific and targeted with where the monitors are rolled out. Importantly, I noticed in the question results that people had said back office integration is something that can hinder the ROI in the monitor program. At ANOVA and with the Unify platform, we do have integration capabilities to all the major back office systems, and that's an integral part of the process, right? I said before that it's not a silver bullet just to put a tank monitor on a tank and then say, well, there's level data coming in. What we really want to achieve is getting the level data integrated to your system. So the dispatcher sitting there doesn't have to look at our software, your software, a report that may have come by email. As good as that all is, it's more fluid if it's all in the same place, and they continue to use Cargas or Blue Cow or ads, whatever they do day to day to plan deliveries, just with the added accuracy of having a level from that morning in front of them to make a decision with. And finally, the change management assessment. One of the benefits of Transform is that it allows you to kind of quantify your savings and track reporting ongoing performance across those key indicators over time. And what we're really going to do is analyze monitored versus unmonitored performance on the tanks that you decided to invest and put a monitor on, and make sure they're actually giving you return on the time, effort, and of course the capital expenditure as well. We can map out a multi-year business plan and then track against that target and make sure that year to year we're deploying the amount of monitors that we planned for, and that you're achieving the distribution savings on those accounts after the deployment of the monitor. So what we have here is some results that we took from a bit of a study that we did using 10 or 11 East Coast LPG distributors that we've worked with. We have a large set of data from Transform. There was, if you look at the numbers up here, 11.8 million miles driven. There was nearly 1 million deliveries across 312,000 site tank locations. And we had 39,000 monitors deployed across those sites. And what we noticed was, after the deployment of the monitor, the realized impact was that there was 46,000 less drops, around $2 million in direct distribution cost savings, and 583,000 fewer miles driven, there and abouts. To be specific to what the effect that has on carbon emissions, because I know that's becoming more and more studied these days and tracked, there was 429 million tons of CO2 saved. Which is quite a lot when you think of it in terms of driven miles. So just to give you an idea of the impact this can have using the program, there is actual realized savings. And we're going to jump back into a Transform demo later, but before we do that, we can look at some of the operational sided innovations that we've got going at ANOVA as well. The first of those is what we've called ANOVA Advanced Analytics. So what is it? The Advanced Analytics is essentially a collection of sophisticated algorithms which work together to analyze vast sets of data provided and forecast level and days to run out or critical tank level on your tank. The advantage of the solution is that it's based on machine learning logic, which increases its accuracy over time and the accuracy of the forecast as more and more data is consumed. Now, whether the data itself comes from a tank monitor or your back office system, be that tank level, degree day data, individual tank consumption or weather patterns, we could consume all of that to provide a more accurate forecast. And what that really allows us to do is move beyond just providing the current level and alarm state of the tank. We can assess all tanks and then intelligently plan for the winter peak, which is what we're going to focus on next. And ultimately, this reduces the deliveries you need to make in peak season, which affects how many trucks and drivers you need, or more importantly, driver overtime. It's an important transition from recommending fills rather than simply just providing the current tank level and leaving it to the dispatcher to make a decision when they have many decisions to make each morning, especially in the winter peak. And very importantly, the solution integrates into your back office system to provide actionable data, whether you're a big company, small company, or which back office you're using. We have an open API infrastructure and we can integrate to your systems. So putting that to use in a real world example, we thought we'd focus here on peak demand shaving. The graphic you can see here clearly shows that there's a winter peak in the months of December through the end of February. And what we want to achieve is a reduction in this peak through the pulling forward of deliveries into the shoulder months of October and November. And that allows the propane distributor to reduce overall fleet dependency. Importantly, I think the variable we've been focusing on is reduced driver overtime. And I think it's important to say operate safer by avoiding having to drive in often dangerous and icy conditions or after sunset. In order to achieve this outcome, we need to have access to and consume three very important data sets or data sources, right? Historic consumption data, which comes from your ERP system, the daily predicted tank level, either from a monitor or an intelligent forecasting algorithm, and also the current daily usage of any given tank, which the tank monitor provides. So if we take a practical example here, we can demonstrate kind of the need for intelligent algorithms to help with this solution or be the bedrock of it. So if we have 30,000 peak shapeable accounts in this instance and a 3-month winter cycle, we have 90 days of usage data, 90 days of forecasting points, and 90 daily usage points to consume across 30,000 tanks, which is 8.1 million data points. All of that needs to be processed daily to decide not only which tanks to fill, but importantly, which tanks we can hold off on filling and which ones we can pull forward and ultimately reduce that winter peak. So I think there's a couple of important points to touch here. One is that type of technology or solution isn't limited just to large propane distributors with sophisticated back office systems and software. It can be used by anybody, big or small, right? We can, again, integrate to most back office systems. It doesn't have to be SAP. So it's available to distributors of all sizes. The other important point to make, and we were discussing it earlier on a panel talk this morning, was not to be scared by the idea of having a lot of data to analyze. It already exists, as most propane distributors do have ERP systems that they're using and routing and truck computing. So all the data is there. It's really about harnessing that to make more informed decisions. So a win-win, essentially. You're not losing anything at the moment. And with that, I'm going to jump into a transform demo and just run you through some of the core screens and show you how it all kind of comes together.
Thanks, Daniel. And as you do that, if you have questions, anyone out there, please feel free to put them into the question facility and we'll get to them in the Q&A. Thank you for those folks that already did that as well. We do have a piece of feedback that came through from the poll. The other reason that is challenging for you to leverage a full ROI on your tank monitors, and it's anonymous, which is fine. We appreciate all questions. My other issue is paying the upfront cost for monitors and then having to buy new monitors a couple of years later when new technology causes upgrade requirements. And I responded directly to the person on this, but I'll share with all of you. We understand that. We as ANOVA been in the business for 30 years. We were formed by the consolidation and merger of 6 of the top companies around the world, which is why we are in so many different markets, and bev carb, chemicals, fuels, lubricants, propane, and broadly LPG, and of course industrial gases. So we've seen these network changes come and go. We support our customers through them. They do happen. And we've got others that have been talking about no need for that. Their monitors, which are new technology, like ours, but we have older network compatible models in the field. They just haven't been around long enough. But we are very, very proud of our depth of experience and expertise in this industry. It's real. Our folks come from the industry. They've been working in the industry many years before joining ANOVA, or they've grown up at ANOVA and they've been here for 20 odd years or longer. So we're very proud of that history. But my suggestion here is that we have a hardware as a service capability, which always ensures that for a low monthly fee, you have the latest, you have the monitors that you need to support the telco communications. And should they downturn a network carrier, we will provide you with a compatible monitor for that. So I just wanted to address that point while we had a moment there. Sorry, that took a little longer than expected, Daniel. Are you ready to kick off the demo for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
All righty. So if everybody can see my screen? Just double check, Bridget, you can see that screen there?
Beautiful, yeah.
Excellent. Alrighty, so what we're looking at here is, you may notice ANOVA Unify in the corner. So this is our Unify platform, and Transform is one of the applications that runs on that. We also have our core operations, devices, and reporting applications as well. So advantage of the platform, that different URLs or anything else, you can see all your monitors, all your data, all your ops in one location. The key screens, there's two important points to make.
Daniel, you're cutting out a bit, mate. You still with us?
Yep, yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Don't know if you've got anything else going on in the background, but may want to see if you can cut something down there where, yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Coming through there, Bridget?
Yep, thumbs up, we can hear you. So just kick this off again, thanks.
So two important things to cover, just underpinning logic for Transform. We've set it to 62% here. We can set that typically between 55 and 60, even 50, depending on where the company's at when we start the process. But if you notice the 44%, what we're saying here is there was 23,000 tanks, 87,000 deliveries, and across all of those deliveries, this company here, or this mock company, achieved a 44% average fill. So we have this concept of a savable delivery, and that kind of drives the ROI analysis. And to use an example, we may have Mrs. Smith, 20 deliveries in a year, and they were all made at 30% overall on average. If we say the target fill we believe we can achieve is 60% with the use of tape monitoring and proper forecasting, then how many deliveries would we actually need to make? And simple math here, we would need to make 10, not 20. So we have 10 savable fills for Mrs. Smith. And if we do that over the entire tank population, we have 24,000 deliveries here of the 87,000 made that we believe can be saved. And that kind of drives your potential savings. You can see $1.6 million down here. And importantly, this is real data from 3 or 4 propane companies we work with, but we've anonymized all of it and got a split from around the States. We'll also look at 0-gallon deliveries, the run out percentage, and importantly, the amount of gallons you're putting in the tank per drop. And what we want to see over time with the increase in monitoring is that also increases as well. But this is just kind of the 1,000-foot view. We can then start to drill down on the average fill over time. So if we go to the average fill tab here, you'll notice we're in the historical assessment, but what we're now doing is we're saying, let's look at the average fill per month and the amount of deliveries that were monitored or unmonitored. And if you remember back to some of the first slides, you have the historic assessment and you've also got the monitor impact, and they meld together sometimes. If you've already got monitors deployed, we're going to show you the impact as you use them. So if we pick on December 2020 here, we can see in the yellow a 57% average fill across 3,100 deliveries to monitored accounts, and a 45% average fill across 9,800 deliveries to your unmonitored accounts. And generally what you want to see, is that the yellow or the monitored fills are more accurate and higher average fill, but you also want to see that trend upwards over time as you start to move towards that 55, 60% North Star, and that's driven by your integration and the coming together of the platform. We can also break things down a little further, and we can look at the fill efficiency in terms of timeliness. I tend to think this looks really good in monthly, and this is always a good moment to stop and say that filters can be applied to each of these screens as well. So we're going to look at all customer categories here, but you could focus just on your residential customers. You could focus just on the church customers or builders or commercial. However you want to chop and change the data, we can kind of drill down and look at it. You can even reduce the amount of district data deliveries that are included in the set. What we commonly do here is change this to monthly, and perhaps we want to first look at how your unmonitored deliveries went. So here we can see a little bit more red, right? Inefficient fills between 2 and 20%, and some black as well, which is the 0-gallon deliveries, and perhaps some late fills, which are potentially runouts. If we then assess the impact the monitors are having, we can go monitor deliveries. And here you see a lot more green. Now, importantly, there's also an undercurrent, which is fairly consistent, of inefficient fills. And that's when you start considering that change management aspect of Transform and say, well, why are there still inefficient fills when we know the level in the tank the morning that we forecast the delivery? And what we've been through with customers that have used this process over years is to then drill down further on those inefficient fills and look at the types of accounts that they're made to. Perhaps they're monitoring poultry farms and they're contracted to go every week or every second week regardless. Or maybe there's something flawed in the integration and the level data being passed into your back office system isn't actually being leveraged and used. Maybe the tank's set to scheduled, so it throws out the tank level that's coming in because it's preset to pull a ticket every 2 weeks. Things like that we've seen, and it's important not only to say, well, it's great that I can improve delivery efficiency when I monitor a tank, but we also need to pay attention to the monitor impact itself over time and not expect that it would just be a perfect fill from the get-go. So we can break down a little further into category analysis. So the back office systems often give us an indicator of how the delivery was scheduled, whether it's automatic, scheduled, a will call customer, or even monitored. And what we can do here is look at the average fill over those different delivery methods over time. What we typically see is the scheduled deliveries are usually the lowest because they're going on a set schedule and often too often. And we can also assess the impact the monitors have. So in this table below, we've actually split the unmonitored and monitored deliveries made to those different, or with those different forecast categories. And you can see if the monitors are helping. And you notice with the scheduled deliveries, they are not. So that would be something we would assess and help you tackle. Importantly, in the last historic screen we'll look at, we have the run out analysis also. What we'll do here once it loads. So we can have a look at, in the gray, the unmonitored runouts, and in the yellow, the monitored runouts. I think it's all well and good to look at large numbers, but there's often more unmonitored accounts. So you would expect to see more unmonitored runouts. What we pay attention to here is the line graph, which actually shows you the percentage of deliveries that were potential runouts or actual runouts if your back office system flags them as such. A new feature we've added to Transform is this drill down ability. So you might notice in the table below, we have 3 and 4+, and there's a monitored customer here. If we click on it, it will pull up, and there won't be a name, but it will show specifically which tank it was, and that this customer had 3 potential runouts in the given time period, which here was a year. So 9 deliveries, average fill 70%, but 3 of those were potential runouts, which means if we're not provided a flag with the data that says this was a runout delivery, we can set a bound that says anything 78% and higher is a potential runout. And that's what we've done here, just to give an example. But if you had actual tank and customer names, you would get the customer name under site and the tank ID, and that would provide you a list of customers that have potentially been run out of gas twice, and you can have your CSR reps follow up quickly. So the deployment plan, we talked about filters before. I've just created an example filter here. What we're doing is focusing on 3 customer categories. They're residential, commercial, and I think builders. We're only looking at automatic and scheduled accounts, not including will calls, and we're looking at all 4 district locations. So we can get specific with the type of filter that you create to do a potential deployment plan. And then if you come across to this ROI screen, it'll give a very quick assessment of, well, what is the potential financial impact for putting monitors on these 1,000 sites. So it uses that filter. It runs across all the deliveries to each tank location. It says, here are 1,000 tanks that are best suited for monitoring, and then sums up the total deliveries. So in this case, 4,900 deliveries, 33% average fill, and your total delivery cost there, we're using $65 or $60 as a per drop cost, is about 330,000. If we were to save 2,200 deliveries, we stand to remove $151,000 worth of distribution cost. And then once we account for the cost of our monitors, the deployment costs associated with them, and any ongoing hosting and comms that you're paying per monitor per year, we end up with a payback period. And generally speaking, anything under 3 is great. Anything under 2 is awesome, and 1 and below is brilliant. So here we're really focusing on the lowest hanging fruit in this example set. One of the really important aspects is it's great to get the deployment plan put in front of you, but you then need to seamlessly be able to be shipped the units and then have your installers go out and install them, or ANOVA's installers if you're contracting out installation services. The site review gives you a specific export of all the targeted sites in the deployment plan, and you'll notice this export button in the top right corner. If you click on that, the deployment plan is sent to your email, and typically what we do is we would send that to you as the customer, and we always include a little bit extra. So you can see there's 1,200 eligible sites here for a 1,000 site plan, but we would send you that, and you would know better than us that some of those sites just can't have a monitor put on them. Perhaps the tank is hard to access, maybe it's a contracted customer, maybe there's a Doberman that's aggressive. For any of those reasons, you might return it to us and say, well, here's the 1,000 you should actually focus on. And then we would go and ensure that these are created as sites and tanks in our Unify platform. And from day one, after you ship the units, all the installer has to do is use our ANOVA Go installation app, and they arrive at Mrs. Smith's house, type in her name or her account ID, and it brings up Mrs. Smith, and they click deploy monitor, scan the unit, wake it up, monitors are deployed, and then we refresh the data, and we come across to those previous historical screens, or we can come across to the monitored versus unmonitored impact analysis. And this basically gives us a summary of all those key metrics for your monitored deliveries and your unmonitored deliveries for a given time period. Here we're looking at 2021. And this essentially serves as a scorecard. Any upwards management reporting, or if you're showing the impact of the monitor program at large, I'd say this is the screen to do it with, because you get all your key metrics in one place. And here we can see the monitor impact has been positive. It's 11% higher average fill. But importantly, we more than halved the moderate deliveries and lowered the inefficient fills significantly. So something to focus on. And the last thing I'll quickly jump into, because we moved over it, was the scorecard for your branch locations. So if you do have multiple branch locations, you can look at their delivery metrics similar to that performance screen, but you can change between monitored and unmonitored as well. So one thing I think it's important to focus on when you've got a monitor program is not only is the average fill going up, or are you doing less runouts, but are your branch locations all using the technology in a consistent manner? And that's something we don't always see. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 districts that have a high average fill and no runouts and monitored accounts. And then we've got other districts which have let a couple of the batteries go flat, they haven't replaced cables, and they're not achieving the same results. So I think it's important to kind of assess it on a 2-pronged approach. One is, are we achieving our metrics and getting the operational efficiencies? And the other is, if we have multiple locations, are we consistently using the technology, following best practice? And that's something we can definitely help you put together. And for a demo, I think that will that'll cap us on the call before we run out of time, so we save some time for questions as well.
Excellent. Well, we've got one slide left, I think, in the deck. We can sit on that summary slide and open it up to questions. Just want to cover a quick question we got from Joe, who's still on the line with us, about peak shaving. How to calculate savings if deliveries are made earlier? What have you got to say about that, Daniel?
It's a good question. Nature of peak shaving with pulling deliveries forward is that it can have sometimes an inverse effect on the average fill. So when we have looked at modeling peak shaving for a couple of companies, there are going to be deliveries that you make that are less than optimal. So they won't be at 60%, maybe they're at 30%. The way we design the tool, and it's important to notice that we've been doing proof of concept trials with it, is that you can set a bound to say, well, I want to, essentially try and achieve some peak shaving, but I don't want to make deliveries which are under 30% average fill. So there's a balance and a trade-off, and we actually allow you to set that limit. And you can go anywhere from include anything or be quite conservative and say, no, I've achieved my 50%. I really want to focus on keeping things efficient and see what I can cut out. So again, a trade-off, almost like a device calling more than once a day or once a day. You have a battery trade-off that you make, and we let you guys make the decision, but allow for both.
Okay, great. Well, there you go, Joe. I gave you my 2 cents as well. It was nothing what he covered. So you've got all sorts of benefits going for you there as well. Okay, we have another question here from Susan. Can multiple people in your in our organization, have access to ANOVA Transform?
Yes, they can. I'm just going to share that last slide there. Yeah, the way we design Transform is on Unify, we essentially capture the organizational structure of your business. And let's just use a complex example. You might have an enterprise organization which has regions and then branches underneath that. And if we have a branch manager and a regional manager, you can allow any of them access to Unify. And generally what they see with Transform is they'll see the results for their specific location. You won't see other companies' data, you'll only see your own company's data. And then when we look at tank monitors themselves and the management of tank monitors on that Unify platform, then your login will be very branch specific. So if the branch manager for New York logs in, he's going to see the devices with New York. If the branch manager from Philadelphia logs in, he will not see the New York devices, he'll see his own, and including the tanks that they're monitoring as well.
Okay, great. We have another question here from Brett. Can ANOVA Advanced Analytics that you talked about today work for small companies? Because we're a pretty small company.
Yeah, absolutely can. Generally speaking, the platform is agnostic as to the size of your company. So anyone can be set up on Unify. Anybody can use Transform the Advanced Analytics. Really, it's about just joining the technology together. So we would work with you to identify what back office system you're using, and then get the delivery data in, and ourselves provide back level from the monitors, input and results from the analytical applications as well.
Great, thank you. And we have a question from Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous. Is Bookworks a back office program that you work with? We have before.
It would have been, I think it was probably one that I worked with. We did actually get Transform data from them, and we had loaded it in, I think around 2 years ago with the customer. So yeah, we can. Where you may not know exactly how the back office system itself can provide data or use APIs, what we would recommend is you contact us at ANOVA, and we'll actually, with you, set up a call with the back office representative as well. And the 3 of us get on a call together, and generally after 30 minutes, we figure out how to best do things. And then we'll work directly with the back office company on your behalf to get the data in for you.
Great, easy. Okay, Jennifer has a question. Is ANOVA Transform included with the Unify upgrade or an add-on option?
It's included there, so you can use it. It exists on the Unify platform. It will be visible only if you actually have data in the Transform application. So that means we're getting delivery records from your back office system. Unify we can turn on and turn off different applications based on what you're actually using at the time. So is it included? Yes, it's there from the get-go. We just need to get the data to make it work.
Okay. And we have an anonymous question. Boy, Anonymous has got a lot of questions today. Thank you. Can Unify work with all brands of monitors or just ANOVA monitors?
We can pull in data from third-party monitors. So we've got the ability to access the level data from their platform if they provide it. Some of those companies do have APIs that we can pull, and then we would get their level data into Unify. That gives you the ability to see, again, not only the ANOVA monitor tank levels, but also tank levels from third-party monitors.
Okay, thank you. And what are the fees going to be? Kim asks the question. That's probably a good question for us to follow up with you, Kim. So if we'll take the liberty of reaching out to you to ask specifically what fees you're talking about with what we're presenting here today. And we have a question here about we use a legacy platform, Gas Log Customer, which is one of our systems. How and when do we migrate to Unify?
Right, so that's a good question. You can migrate generally any time from now. We have some customers that have migrated already. We're actually going to be doing a follow-up webinar on the 19th of April. Myself and Avril from ANOVA will be talking about Unify migrations and what Unify is, more on the core side, on the operations and device management. But generally speaking, if you're interested in migrating, we can migrate from any of our legacy platforms, be that ISA, WesRock, or Gaslog, over to Unify. And we would, if you reach out, we can follow up, put together a deployment plan, a migration plan, and then we'll work with you to manage the migration. We generally do it in 2 or 3 stages, accounting for any fallbacks or anything else, and make it a fairly seamless process. But importantly, we're not forcing anybody to go tomorrow. It's important to consider what you guys have going on as well, any IT projects. Naturally, summer is an easier time to do it than winter. So that all being said, we can follow up and then we can run you through the process. And that webinar on the 19th of April is a really good starting point.
Exactly. And we'll send a thank you note out with the link to join that if you haven't already. We have another question here. Does ANOVA service the Caribbean and South American locations?
South American we do. Caribbean we will follow up just to double check. I believe the answer is yes.
Oh, yes, it is. We have customers in the Caribbean. I'm well aware of those. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do send monitors down there. I'm not sure if they were asking for any in-person services such as our installation services, but we definitely we have people in South America, and we sell to the Caribbean from our US locations for sure. Okay, well, I think we've got all our questions in. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. There's a quick summary of the topics right in front of you. Let's just go back and stay on that slide there for a second so people can see that. There's an exit survey. So we'd love for your feedback on this list. Which of these topics were the most relevant for you today? That's really helpful for us putting together this session. We hope to see you on the 19th. And let us know how we did. 2 quick questions on exit. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Daniel.
No worries.